Why trailing off mid-sentence is the cold clarity of the unclaimed mind. Carl Jung, you stopped halfway through a sentence today and nobody noticed, including you. You were saying something it was going somewhere. And then, without any decision on your part, you heard yourself land on one of three words. Anyway, whatever, never mind. And the other person said something back, and the conversation carried on. And nothing bad happened, nothing ever happens. That is precisely why you have never examined it. But something did happen. A thought was on its way out of you, and it was stopped in transit. The second half of it is still in there somewhere. You have been doing this for decades, thousands of times. And if I asked you right now what was in any one of those second halves, you could not tell me. Not one. You would probably call that being considerate, not wanting to bore anyone, knowing when to stop. You have probably congratulated yourself on it. It is not consideration. Consideration is a decision, and you did not make one. Something in you made it, faster than you could speak, and it has been making it without consulting you since you were a child. If that just moved something you cannot name, stay. What follows was built for people like you. What you are about to hear is not clinical advice, but an immersion into the analytical psychology of Carl Jung. We will speak of the psyche from structure, not from the consulting room. And I warn you, if you came here to be told that your voice matters, turn it off now. This is going to hurt before it liberates. Let me tell you what actually happens in that half second. There are only three ways a sentence can end. You can finish it, somebody can interrupt it, or it can be stopped from the inside while it is still moving. The third one is not the same as the other two, and almost nobody separates them. When you are interrupted, you know, there is a small friction, sometimes irritation, and you can name what happened. When you finish, obviously, you know. But the third kind leaves no mark. There is no friction, because there is no conflict. One part of you is speaking, another part closed the valve. Both of them are you, so it registers as nothing at all. I call it the live veto. And the word live matters. This is not you thinking better of something and deciding not to say it. That would be slow, and you would remember it. The veto arrives mid-clause while your mouth is already moving. Faster than deliberation can run now. What could possibly be operating faster than your own decision to speak? Here Jung gives you something that people quote badly and understand rarely. So let me put it plainly. Jung did not think of the psyche as one thing. He was explicit about this, and he repeated it throughout his work. The psyche is not an indivisible unit. It is divisible and more or less divided, and it contains parts that operate with a real degree of autonomy. Not metaphorically autonomous, functionally autonomous, capable of holding an aim, capable of acting on it, and of doing so without informing the part of you that thinks of itself as you. This is genuinely uncomfortable, and it is worth sitting with. Your ego, the part reading these words, is not the whole psyche. It is one participant, a prominent one, usually the loudest, but one. So when a sentence dies in the middle, nothing mysterious has occurred. One part of you began it, and a different part with a different aim stopped it. Two functions, one mouth, and the mouth belongs to whichever of them is faster. The vetoing part is faster because it has to be. Your speech is quick, and a censor that runs slower than speech is useless. Now, where did this part learn its job? Jung would not have started with the sentence. He would have started with the moment speaking first became a thing that could be lost. So think about a very specific experience from the house you grew up in, not being shouted at, something quieter and much more common. You were talking and you watched somebody's attention leave, not dramatically. They did not walk out. Their eyes went to the door or the window or somebody else coming into the room. The arrived at the wrong moment, the one that means keep going, but I have stopped. Somebody picked up a newspaper while you were mid-story, and you kept telling it anyway. And you finished. That first time, you finished. You talked into a room where nobody was listening anymore, and you heard your own voice arrive at the end of a sentence with nowhere to land. That is a specific humiliation, and it does not need to happen many times, because a child in that position learns something with extraordinary speed. You learned to watch for the departure, and once you can see attention leaving, you can do the arithmetic. If it is going to leave anyway, it is better to stop first. Stopping first is not defeat. Stopping first is control. That is what the vetoing part actually is. It is not a censor, and it never was. It is a system built to detect the exact moment before withdrawal, and to end your sentence a half second ahead of it, so that you never again have to hear your own voice land in an empty room. You did not learn to be quiet. You learned to leave before you were left. And it worked. That is why it is still running. It has protected you from that particular humiliation for 30 or 40 years, with an almost perfect success rate. Now I want to walk you through what it cost you. Jung's interest was never the symptom. It was the accounting. There are 3 consequences, and they get worse in order. The first I call the shrinking sentence. At the start, the veto only ends sentences. You begin something ambitious, and it gets cut at the point where you sense the room turning. But a system that keeps having to abort will eventually stop launching. So the second stage is that you begin smaller. Without deciding to, you stop starting the thought that needs 4 sentences to land. You choose the version that fits in 1. You give the summary instead of the thing. Watch someone duck through a low doorway every day for a year. Then watch how they walk in other rooms. They stoop, not just at the doorway, everywhere. The body does not maintain 2 postures, one for the low room and one for everywhere else. It adopts the posture that never gets hurt, and it uses that one in the cathedral as well. Your speech has done exactly that. So ask yourself the real question. When did you last say something out loud that required 4 sentences to land to a person who was in the room with you? Ask yourself honestly, and you will probably not find a recent one, and you will assume that is because you have nothing that long to say. It is the other way round. You have stopped generating the long ones. A thought that cannot be delivered stops being manufactured. And there is a version of this you will recognize instantly if you have ever been asked a real question. Somebody asks what you think, not politely. They actually want to know. And you hear yourself produce a short, tidy, agreeable answer that is roughly 40% of what you think, delivered in a tone that says this is all of it. You are not lying to them. You are giving them the version that fits the window your veto thinks you were allocated. And they take it, because why would they not? It sounds complete. So they move on, and you have another quiet moment of feeling slightly unmet, and you file that under other people not being very curious. They were curious. You gave them the summary. The second consequence is stranger, and it is the one that makes this so hard to fix by effort. I call it the inherited audience. Here is the part you have never checked. The people you are trailing off in front of are not the people the system was built for. Your friend is listening. Your partner is listening. That colleague genuinely wants to know what you are going to say. And the veto fires anyway, at exactly the same speed with exactly the same confidence, because it is not reading the room. It is running a model, and that model was built in one house decades ago from a very small sample. There is a thermostat in the room, and it was set by somebody who moved out. The house is now the wrong temperature for everybody in it. Nobody living there chose this, and no one can find the dial. It was installed before any of the current occupants arrived. That is why reassurance never works on this. People have told you they want to hear it. They have said, finish what you were saying. And the veto does not care, because it was never listening to them. It has been listening to somebody who is not in the room and in some cases has been dead for years. And you can test how old the model is with one question. Think of the last 3 people you trailed off in front of. Now ask what those 3 have in common. Almost certainly nothing. Different ages, different relationships to you, different levels of interest. One of them adores you. A system that fires identically across 3 completely different people is not responding to those people. It has not looked at them at all. And notice what that means about the evidence. The system has a perfect record precisely because it never tests itself. It aborts before the outcome every time, so it never once collects data that would contradict it. 40 years of protection, and not a single experiment. And if what I am telling you is touching something deep in you, if you feel that finally someone is putting words to a thing you have carried for years without understanding, subscribe now. Not for me, for yourself, because what comes next is the one that matters, and you should not have to go looking for it later. Let us continue. And here comes the third one. I need you to receive this one with your guard all the way down, because it is not about speaking. I call it the unclaimed thought. Where do you think the second halves went? You probably assume they are stored somewhere, that the thought was complete inside you and simply was not delivered, like a letter written and not posted. That is the comforting version, and it is wrong. Because for most people, most of the time, a thought is not finished before it is spoken. It is finished by being spoken. You have felt this. You start saying something you do not fully understand, and you hear yourself arrive at the point somewhere in the third clause. The talking was not the report. The talking was the thinking. So when the sentence is cut at the halfway mark, the thought is not stored. It is not completed anywhere. It slumps. There is a kiln in this, and it is the most useful way I can give it to you. Clay holds a shape only after it has been fired. Before that, it looks finished to you. You can shape it, admire it, put it on a shelf, and it is still wet. Given enough time, it sags back toward the lump it came from. Nothing about it was ever permanent. Articulation is the firing, a thought that gets said, or written, or carried all the way out. That one is fired. It holds. You can come back to it next year and it is still the shape you left it. A thought that gets vetoed at the halfway point never went in the kiln. It sat on the shelf looking like an idea. It slumped quietly over weeks. There is now nothing there. That is why you cannot tell me what was in any of those second halves. Not because you have forgotten, because they never set. And you have direct evidence of this, and you have never read it as evidence. Think about the last time you tried to explain something you care about and could not get it out. You know you have thought about this. You know you have views. And when the moment came, what arrived in your mouth was thin, and you heard how thin it was while you were saying it, and you finished early out of embarrassment. You did not lose your nerve. You went to the shelf and the piece you reached for was not fired. There was nothing there to pick up. That is also why you argue so well in your head afterwards. In your head, alone with no listener, the veto is off. So the thought finally completes. An hour too late, brilliantly to nobody. You have probably assumed that means you are slow. You are not slow. You are only fast when you are alone, because that is the only place your material ever gets to set. Now think about the volume. Thousands of half-thoughts across 3 decades, none of them fired, all of them slumping. That is not a small loss. That is most of what you have actually thought in your life. And here is the last turn of it. And eventually you conclude that you do not have much of an inner life, that other people seem to have views and you have impressions, that you are not really a thinker. That conclusion is not observation. It is a shelf full of unfired clay, and you have been standing in front of it, deciding you have no talent. Now, what follows is not what you expect, and I want to be clear about that in advance. Jung is not going to tell you to finish your sentences. He is not going to tell you to speak with more conviction, or to remember that what you have to say is valuable, or to hold eye contact until people stop looking away. Every one of those aims at the conversation, and the conversation is not where this is solvable. You cannot outwill a system that operates faster than your will. What he pointed at was somewhere else entirely, and he was practical about it, in a way people rarely credit him with. Jung developed a method for exactly this class of problem. Content that is real, is in you, and cannot get out through the ordinary channel. He called it active imagination, and the principle underneath it is what matters here. You give the material a place where it can complete itself with no audience present. Not analyze it, not improve it, not judge whether it is worth anything. Let the thing finish. In a setting where the veto has nothing to protect you from, because there is nobody there to withdraw, the veto is not aimed at the thought. It is aimed at the listener. Remove the listener and the veto has no job. So here is the practice, and it is deliberately narrow. I call it the second half. Once a day, you write down one thing, not a journal, not your feelings about the day. Only the part of a sentence you swallowed. You will find one easily, because now that you know it exists, you will start catching it live. Somewhere today, you will hear yourself say anyway, or never mind, or it doesn't matter. Note what you were talking about. And that evening, on paper, you write the sentence again, and this time you do not stop. 3 or 4 lines. That is all. Nobody reads it. You do not reread it either. What you are doing is firing one piece of clay a day. And I want to be very specific about 2 things, because this is where people get it wrong. Write it as speech, not as prose. You are not composing. Write it the way you would have said it, mid-flow badly with the clumsy phrasing intact. The point is not to produce something good. Polished writing is the edited channel again, and the edited channel is not where the problem lives. Do not go back and finish it later in conversation. Resist this completely. You will be tempted within a week to bring it up again with the person and say the whole thing. That is the old system reasserting itself in a costume. It makes the exercise about delivery and about them. And delivery is not what is broken. Firing is. One more thing about where you do it, because it matters more than it sounds. Do not do this on your phone. Not in notes, not in a document, not anywhere that has ever held something another person might see. Your veto knows the difference between a surface with an audience and a surface without one, and it knows it faster than you do. Paper, a cheap notebook that nobody has any reason to open. You are constructing the one place in your life where the listener does not exist, and the entire mechanism depends on your body believing that. And do not date the entries or number them. The moment it becomes a record, it becomes a thing that could be read, and you will start writing for the reader who might one day find it. That reader is the whole problem, wearing a new coat. I will not lie to you about the first 2 weeks. Some evenings you will sit down and find the second half is genuinely gone. You will remember the situation. You will not remember the thought. That is not failure. That is the clearest possible confirmation of everything I have told you, arriving in your own handwriting. It stops happening. Somewhere around week 3, the halves start being there when you go looking, which means the veto has begun holding the material instead of discarding it. That is the first change, and it happens on paper long before it happens in a room. Now, here is the reversal, and I think it is the most important thing in this video. That vetoing part of you is not an enemy, and it is not damage. It is a function, and it is an extraordinarily good one. Consider what it actually does. It monitors a live sentence. It models a listener in real time. It evaluates the trajectory, and it executes a decision inside a half second. Most people do not have that. They finish sentences that stopped being worth saying 2 clauses ago and never notice it. You have a precision instrument. It has simply been pointed at the wrong question. It has spent 40 years asking, is this going to be received? And it could be asking, is this still true? That is the entire reassignment. Same speed, same sensitivity, same function, aimed at the content instead of the audience. And a person whose internal editor is checking their sentences for truth, rather than for reception, is not a hesitant speaker. They are the most exact one in the room. You have met people like this. They pause in the middle of a sentence and everyone waits. Because when they resume, the thing they say is precisely right. They are running your mechanism. It is just calibrated to a different target. What appears when this shifts is not confidence, and I want to set that expectation properly. Confidence is the wrong goal, and chasing it will send you back to the conversation. What appears is that the trailing off starts happening for a different reason. You will stop mid-sentence and find, on inspection, that you stopped because the sentence had gone wrong, not because the room had. That is the same behavior with the opposite meaning, and only you will ever know which one is operating. Other people register it before you do. They will not say you have become more assertive. They will say something looser, that you seem more definite, or that they can tell what you actually think now. What they are noticing is that the half you used to swallow has started arriving. Your unfinished sentence is not rudeness, and it is not a lack of confidence. Your unfinished sentence is not proof that you have nothing to say. Your unfinished sentence is the fastest, most disciplined part of you. Doing a job it was given at 9 years old, by somebody who has since left the building. And I want to be careful here, because there is a trap at exactly this point. Knowing all of this does not make you more thoughtful than people who simply finish what they start. Watch out for that. You can now describe your silence with a Swiss vocabulary. It is still silence, and a well-explained shelf of unfired clay is still an empty shelf. It does not make you deep. It makes you accountable to 1 page a day. Not to speaking up, not to being braver in meetings, to firing one thing in private where it costs you nothing. Because that is what this is, and it is narrower and better than the version you were sold. It is not learning to say everything. Most of what you swallow should be swallowed, and always it should have been. It is knowing, for the first time, which half you kept. If this reached you, subscribe. Not for me, because the next ones go further into this than I can go in one sitting. And leave a comment with one thing. Finish a sentence here that you did not finish somewhere else this week. Any of it. You will not know the people reading it. They will not know you. That is exactly the condition the veto cannot operate in. I read them all. And if there is someone you know who says anyway, and never mind more than anybody should, send them this. That is probably the only reframe they were waiting for. You stopped halfway through a sentence today, and nobody noticed, including you. The half you swallowed did not go anywhere, and it did not survive. But the next one can, and it does not need a listener, and it does not need courage.